From New York City, I'm Stephen Shalowitz, and this is the One Way Ticket Show. Simon, we've got so many bases to cover, but I really want to start out with you, as I do with all of my guests, by issuing your one-way ticket destination of choice. So Simon Deng, if I gave you a one-way ticket, past, present, future, real, imaginary, even a state of mind, where would you go?
I will go where I will search for freedoms, because I was denied freedom when I was a child. And I will go where I can tell the world that victimizing a child is an evil. I will go where I will tell somebody that you are not alone. I'm here now as somebody who was in a place where nobody was there for me, as a freedom person, in a living among the free peoples. I'm using my freedom to go and help somebody who his freedom or her freedom being taken away. And that is the goal, and that's where I have to go.
And in a way, you are on your one-way ticket journey right now, aren't you?
Yes, indeed. You know, when I left Sudan, it was because I was being told that I should not advocate for Southern Sudanese who is being victimized. At the time when Sudan was an Islamic country, the first victims under the Sharia law happened to be the Africans, the Christian, and my peoples. At that time, I was a Sudanese swimming champion. And then people will come to me to ask me if I can go and release their loved one from prison. I'm talking about women's. And then I will go there every morning, either in Omdurman, in Khartoum, or in Khartoum North, because Khartoum is shared by 3 cities in one. And then surprisingly, every morning, every time I go there are always vehicles taking kids who pass away. In the beginning, I didn't pay attention, but every time I go, I see these things. And it becomes something that becomes concern to me. And I ask the prison guard, the one in charge, and the man was very honest. He told me, to be true to you, most of the kids who has been brought here with their mothers, they never met it. Leave out the women who give birth into those detention prisons. These places are not being built as prisons. These are the places used to be penitentiary for the kids, schools. They was turned into prison because there was no prison being allocated with all facilities for people to survive in them, and being packed with the women and children, and these are the Africans. And then when I was being told by that gentleman, I became paralyzed. And I took the case to higher authority in the country, where I was being told I should not get into politics. I can take anything I need, or I can ask them anything I want in the country, and then I will have it. But I should not get myself in a place where they will not serve me. And I come out from there confused. Now I'm being accepted because I was a Sudanese swimming champion, and my people are not. Then what use for me to be in that place, seeing what I'm seeing every day? And then I walk away from Sudan, buying a one-way ticket, a ticket of no return.
To the United States.
To the United States.
And remind us what year that was.
It was in 1988.
Yeah.
1988.
Take us back, Simon, if you would, to your village before you were abducted. What was life like?
You know, in Sudan, of course, the majority of Southern Sudanese, they are not in the cities. Everybody in the villages, because during the time of the colonials, the Southern Sudan was being kept as an isolated from the North. In other words, the British was ruling Sudan into 2 parts. The North being run by different administrations, and the South being run separately, to a point that the Southern Sudan was kept undeveloped. There was no development taking place in Southern Sudan. Everything was in the Northern Sudan. To other point that most people, they don't come to the city because there is nothing there for them. All they have to be in the villages, and where I was born in the village, very peaceful village. During my childhood, the first lesson that I was being told by my mom, when you see the Arab coming, you have to run, and you have to run for your life. Growing up, and that's what, these are something constantly. The government troop will come into the villages, burn the villages, and then people will run, and then people will come back, rebuild, because building a house in the south or in the village, it is not something very difficult, because you're using the grass and the mud. And this is what we was living in. But it was constantly being buried to a point where sometimes the people who cannot run, we talk about the elders, the disabled peoples, most of them always end up burned alive in Southern Sudan. And then my dad decided that to take his family, because we have a big family, to the city of Malacan in Southern Sudan. This is where I was kidnapped by an Arab person who was a neighbor to us, a gentleman by the name Abdullah, and he took me to Northern Sudan, to the village of Shishoya, a suburb of Kosi, the bigger city on the further north of the Sudan, where he gave me away to his relative as a gift.
I want to talk about what life was like after you were abducted, but if you can share with our audience a little bit about the difference between the northern part of Sudan and the southern part of Sudan in terms of the ethnic makeup that is different, and also the religious makeup that's different, because that has driven a lot of the conflict.
That's a good question. The Northern Sudan's consider themselves as Arabs, Muslims. Southern Sudanese consider themselves as Christians, Africans, knowing that Sudan is an African country. But those in the north, because they have blood related or mixed with the Arabs, and basically the majority of them has convert Africans into Islam. When you become a Muslim, then you will not identify in Sudan, identify yourself as an African. You identify yourself as an Arab because of Islam. The Northern Sudanese entirely consider Southern Sudanese are black African slaves, because in Arabic, being a black person by nature, you are an abid, a slave, regardless of who you are, even unless you have to convert and then change your identity into Arabization. And this is where I used to call it Islamization and Arabizations. You become a Muslim, and then you become an Arab. And this is the fact that to the world to be the judge, not me, that how come an African country in the middle of Africa call themselves or call itself as an Arab and Islamic country, to a point that the Sudan went beyond the most African country who happen to be Islamists, to went further and declare itself as an Islamic state in the middle of Africa. Sudan by name itself is Bilad Soda, is the land of black. But now, because of there are individuals who have the adopted Arab culture, they impose Islamization on the others. And this is exactly, Steve, the problem which led to dividing Sudan into two. The issue of Arabization and Islamizations, in which that our brothers in the north, I call them brothers because we are all human beings. But those in the north, they don't look at the Southern Sudanese as human beings. They don't look at Southern Sudan as people who deserve to be there. And that is why they have a culture of slaughtering Southern Sudanese. And people will be surprised. 4 million African blacks in Sudan was slaughtered in the name of Islamization and Arabization in Sudan. That itself, everybody have to be a judge here. How can that country exist as one country? And that is what lead to Southern Sudan today to be two countries, because of that racist of Arabization and Islamizations.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to get that out there. And so to go back to that very painful point in your life where you were taken as a slave, if you don't mind my asking, Simon, what were you experiencing? What were you thinking when you were given away as a gift to somebody? Did you know what was happening? I mean, you were only 9 years old.
In the beginning, when we arrived in Peshishoy, because Abdullah did promise me that when the steamer left the station in Malacan, which I was terrified because he tricked me when he told me to sit on his next on where his luggage is, and then he will come, so I will get out. He didn't come until the steamers left. I became terrified, crying, and he came immediately to calm me down and telling me that the steamers left the station now. The only thing we do that we have to go all the way to Kosti, the last destination, and I would put you back into the next steamer that coming back to Southern Sudan. Of course, being the only person that I know there, I have to rely on everything that he promised me. We arrive in Kosti. Turn out that Abdullah have other kids with him. We went from Kosti to Feshishoy, his village. And this is where now I was given away. I didn't know that I was given away as a gift until 2 days later, the relative of Abdullah, the family whom I was given to them, I asked them, where is Abdullah? Because he promised me that he's going to put me I can go back to Malacan. This is where I was informed that I should not ask for Abdullah because I'm not going to see him again. I was given, according to them, he was given to us by Abdullah as a gift. So you should not be asking for Abdullah. That was a moment that I could not, it's something that I should not even want to hear. I start crying, until to a point that they have to beat me so that I have to, but how can you be silent or stop crying? No, you're being told that you are not going to go back to your parent. You are not going to back to your mom. You was given away as a gift. And by the way, I didn't know the word of slavery at that time. And I didn't know there is something on earth called slavery.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, did you know that kids were being taken away at that point? This was a totally new phenomenon for you.
Something a shock to me, because even I didn't know the word itself is slavery. And then from there, I was being kept constantly under torture so that I have to submit to the torture, where now I have to be listened to what I'm being told. And that was the moment that I cannot even describe it. I have nowhere to go, and I have nowhere to run, to a point that I was being told at that time by them, in which that in the Sudanese currency, there is a picture of a human being with no legs in the Sudanese currency at that time. Most Sudanese knows what I'm talking about. So they brought those currency, and then I was forced to look at it. And I was being told, look at it very well. If you think you can run away, you have nowhere to go, because we're going to cut you, and we're going to cut your leg, and you look like this one. That itself was a terrifier to me. If I think of going, knowing that there is nowhere I can run, because I don't know west, I don't know east, even I don't know where to run.
And again, we should point out you were only 9 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where now my mind now become terrified, especially when I was being told that my leg will be cut. That itself, it was a nightmare to me. So now I become a child who was subject to do everything. In the village of Fashishoya, they don't have running water at that time. People get their water from the Niles, because the Nile is just close by. And donkeys always are the one carrying the water from the Nile into the houses. So for them, seeing they have a slave in the house, then I was being subject to do that job, get the water, in which that I have to make sure that there is a water in the house, where you have to have 2 buckets with the sticks, and you have to hold it on your back. Usually I don't make it full, because I will not be able to carry, but I will do everything I can. And this become my job. I'm the first to get up in the morning and the last to go to sleep, because I have to make sure that everything is being done. Even that I'm a child now, being subject to do the thing that a child cannot even endure physically and mentally. And what do I have? I'm not a human being. to a point that I was being told that if I want to be treated as a human being, I have three options. One, convert to Islam. Two, give an Arab name. Three, become their son. Of course, I was willing to take the two out of three, convert and take the names. But how can I give away my identity knowing that I have a mom and I have a dad, brothers and sisters? I come from a lovely family, for God's sakes. Now, how can I now, being put in that situation, and then walk away from my parents who loved me as a child, as a human being, and then become a son to a family who subject me into something that a child could not be into? People have to eat. And the leftover, if there is a leftover, that is my food, and that's what I had relied on for 3.5 years.
And were there other children in the house, and how did they interact with you, if at all?
The children in the house, being a slave, I become like a toy, like a football where the kid can play with. What do I mean by that? Kids, even from the neighborhood, they will come and say "dugal abit," which is bid day slaves, and they will gang on me, beating me just for fun, in where I cannot defend myself, because if I do so, then that inflicts the others to come and do more harm on me. All I have to do usually is to cry for the mercy. But for 3.5 years, the mercy wasn't there. It is something a child should not go through what I went through. In other words, I went through terror.
And when you told the family that you were not going to convert, you were not going to take an Arab name, and you weren't going to become their son, what was their response?
Unfortunately, I didn't tell them, because at that time, I don't have a word to say no to anything. At that time, I have only one word, and that word is yes, and yes to everything.
How did you get through all this, Simon? What role did your resilience, what role did faith play in getting through this hell?
I cannot even describe how did I get through it, but when you was put in a cave where you cannot run, where you cannot escape, all you have to rely to make sure that have a hope to endure the pain that you are subject to, because you have no way out. I didn't have way out at all. I didn't have somebody to come and say, you are a human being. I didn't have somebody where I can go and complain to. I didn't have anybody who have mercy on me when I was being subject, especially by the kids in my age, for fun, because I was not being considered as a human being. I was a slave.
And again, a 9-year-old boy, and you were there for 3.5 years when you should have been in school.
Even though
You had no education.
I was not being considered as a boy. I was just being considered a slave. A boy now is a human being, but a slave is not.
And then talk about what your family was going through this time while you were away, and how they responded to your abduction.
When I disappear, because that is the way they have to describe it, my dad did put an offer 10 cow to anyone who will come and tell him about his sons as a reward. For 2.5 years passed, nobody came to claim the 10 cows. And my dad and my family have to put together a funerals of their child. A child nobody knows what happened, how happened. And that's what my family has went through.
Yeah, they did what we would call almost a mock funeral, because they had no body there, but it was more of a spiritual funeral.
Just for them now to move on, without knowing what happened to their child.
Talk about how you gained your freedom.
And this is where remarkable, I can say, God have answered my prayer. The family have a son. In Fashishoya, they don't have a high school, junior high schools. They have to move to Costa, which is the biggest city where there are so many junior high schools. So they have to move there because their son have to go to Sky School. And this is where I run into 3 gentlemen that happen to have Shilluk tribal mark in their forehead. At that time, I didn't have Shilluk tribal mark that I have on my forehead today. When I saw them, it was a miracle. It was God answered my prayer. I ran into them, telling them who I am, because I didn't have anything identify myself with them. They have, 3 of them have Shilluk tribal marks. I didn't have. All I have is to tell them my name in the Shilluk language, my mom name, my dad name, the name of my village, just to convince them, because I don't have the identity of the Shilluks. All I have is the language. So I have to say everything to them so that it will convince them that I am a Shilluk child. And then one of them said to me that, unfortunately, that we don't know your mom, we don't know your dad, but we know somebody. Because the reason they don't know my mom and my dad, because they come from further northern Shilluks, and I am from further southern Shilluks. And he went on to say that there is a gentleman whom live close to where we are, who came from the village that you mentioned to us. He probably would be the one who will know you. I got disappointed. And without realizing, the tears were just running down in my eyes. And then the other one put his arm on me to calm me down, telling me that we understand your feeling, but don't get disappointed. We will come tomorrow and we meet you in this location, and we will come with that gentleman. That gentleman will be the one who will know your mom, probably. Indeed, that day comes, and I was there before them, because I have to sneak out from the house without telling my slave master.
Yeah, I was
where
going to ask,
Yeah.
how did that happen, that you were able to get out of the house?
I have to sneak without anybody knowledge. And I was there, terrified, waiting for them for the moment, and they come. When I saw that gentleman, somebody that I knew from my childhood, from back home, and that gentleman broke down in tears, crying. The reason he was crying, because he was part of the funerals. He was part of the family when the funeral was being put together with the
Your
child.
funeral?
My funerals. He was shocked to see me. And to me, I was happy to see somebody that I knew back home, but it was opposite. So he went on, wept his tears up, telling me that don't ever tell your slave master that you met somebody that you knew. Because if you tell them, they will take you away where we will not find you. But every time I will tell you when I will come and meet you here. And we went on for, I think, so a couple, I don't know how long, until he put together everything, and he was the one who took me back to Southern Sudan, where I was reunited with my loved one.
How did he take you back? What was that journey like? I mean, did he meet you in a particular place, or did he come to your house?
No, he cannot come to my house. Yeah, because my slave master would take me away, will put me where I will not be found. Because to them, they are just waiting for the moment where they're going to have a son. They are waiting for the moment where I will crack, or what I have holding me not to accept it to become their son. And I was not taken to school, because they're waiting for that moment that I agree with the 3 options that was given to me. So he was the one who was telling me that I'm putting everything together, and then put the money where we can buy. He would buy a ticket. And indeed, he was the one who facilitated everything until the moment came. He told me that tomorrow I will come and we are out of here, without the knowledge of my slave master.
So you snuck out of the house again?
I snuck out, yes.
And you met him, and then he took you back?
He's the one who took me back to Southern Sudan, where I was reunited with my loved one.
And what were you thinking on that journey back home?
Confused.
How so?
Confused, because am I going to see my mom? Am I really going to see my dad? Am I really going to be united with my brothers and sisters?
And how long was that journey,
Simon? 3 days.
So for 3 days, you were uncertain, really?
Yep. Waiting for the moment if I can see my mom and my dad.
There must have been a great deal of trust that you had in this man.
Oh, yes, because he was one of the relatives in the village. Because in Africa or in Sudan, the village is composed with relatives. When you talk about village, everybody is a family. So he was part of the family. Not necessarily that the blood related family, the village is family.
It's really a sense of community,
Yeah,
isn't
yes,
it?
Yes.
And then talk to us about that moment that you were reunited with your parents and your siblings.
The worst things was when we got into the house where my relatives are, and it was my sister who saw me first, and she screamed, crying, calling that my names, my brother names, and my mom was in the house in the tukul. When she came out, it was terrible. She couldn't stand on her legs. She was falling down, shaking, falling out, crying. And I was here happy, joyful, seeing all of them. But on them, everybody was crying. It was a terrified moment to them, but it was a happy moment for me to see them. It is something that I would not even forget.
Yeah, I mean, it was a highly emotional moment, it sounds like, because they thought that you were dead.
And that's
And
why
they had a funeral for you.
And that's why my mom was not able to stand on her legs, on
Sure.
her feet.
Just extraordinary, Simon. What you had to endure is something nobody, especially a child, should ever have to endure. And just thank you for sharing that story.